The whole thing is couched in the context of Black excellence in San Diego. It's really, like the ulterior motive is me to just find out like who's out here.
Right.
And I say that guiltily, having been here since 2002, and asking myself, how do I not know at this point? So, and it does have a little bit of a, when I got started, I thought, well, we'll go just see whoever, and I'll start with men because it was coming off of the Ahmed Arbery incident, and I was just feeling a particular way myself about the need for some Black men voice and different visual. And as I've been going, I think I may just stay there, man. Like unapologetically. So I know in all of its facets, right, and forms, we can talk about that too. Like what is manhood and masculinity, whatever the definitions you might have for all that.
Right.
But just wanting to explore and give voice to and exposure to the experience of folk that look like you and I.
Let's do it, man. That's what I'm about. It's funny. Last night on our We Are Listening, me and Jacole, after every show, we kind of talk about, we've both been in this theater business here in San Diego for so long, and with what we're doing now, in showcasing, Black theater creatives and professionals. We after every episode, if it's somebody we haven't met yet and we talk to them, we did that last night with Can. I just met Candace Crystal about a month ago. She through somebody else, she asked me to be in her play, which we're filming tomorrow night, and me and Nicole were talking to her, and we were just like, how did all three of us never meet? How have all three of us been in this town in this business, doing what we do, and how it took? This is what it's taken. Yeah. And if it is what it is. If this is for us to form community, and we step forward in doing that, then it is what it is.
Yeah.
I'm good, man. Let's get into it.
Let's get it. So let me just read this. So I got to read this because I'm like, just from the visual of this man looking at me from the screen and these words, we're going to leap from here. So let me just read this for a second, okay? So father and sophisticated savage, quote unquote, in San Diego radio, podcasting, and theater, traveling the cosmos from the inside out. I'm done with the pursuit of perfection. I allowed my failures to put me on that path, which led to more failure. Now I'm on the pursuit of my highest humanity, which is to learn when to pull order out of chaos and to add chaos to stagnant order, to walk the line between yin and yang. Just follow me and you will see what I am about. Ahmed K. Dents. Woo! I need to bolt down and straight, like find the reins or something here for a minute because there's a lot in there. So this here thing that we're trying to do, in these conversations is highlight Black excellence in San Diego. And, that's broadly described, man. And the format of the conversation is usually, what are you up to? How did you come to be doing that? What are you trying to do? And then I've just, we just mine that experience for all the gems and learnings and lessons and ahas and insights and ones to grow on for folk that are 2-step, 3-step behind where you're at right now.
For sure.
They can see you and be like, oh, yes, more please, that thing.
Yeah.
So that's it, man. That's a table setting, So pretend we're in the backyard somewhere and people are playing and what's not. So tell me, what are you up to in San Diego? If you had to say it, if I just ran into you out back, with my beverage and we were talking and I said, hey man, what are you up to? What would you say?
I would start off, man, I'm a San Diego native. I'm born and raised here. I believe I'm the first. I believe I'm the first of my whole family that was born west of the Mississippi. I mean, even my brother and sister, they're 12 and 13 years older than me.
Wow.
They were born in Midway, Alabama, man. And my dad got out of Alabama in the Navy. He served in the Navy. He served in the Korean War. And my dad, my mom, my brother, and my sister, they followed his deployments and his stations, and they went from everywhere from Maryland to Adak, Alaska, and
Oh wow.
he ended up and he retired here. He's stationed here in San Diego. He was on the Constellation. The Constellation changed his base
Okay.
from Seattle. They lived in Bremerton, Washington.
Yep. My sister just moved here from Bremerton. Yep.
Yeah. So the Constellation was based there, and then it moved down here to San Diego. And my dad ended up retiring here in San Diego, and I was born here, and that's just where, my mom and dad were just like, well, we're not going back to Alabama, and that was it. We stayed here, man, and I've been here ever since.
Wow. And so what are you doing here now? What's the like, I see all this podcast theater. Like what do you consider your lane, or what are you in pursuit of?
I consider the lane I'm in. The lane I'm in right now is primarily theater and media. I spent a good 2005. So I spent a good 15 years in radio. I was with KIFM, Smooth Jazz KIFM, since 2005.
Yeah.
Got furloughed like so many other people during this COVID thing. And that kind of put the brakes on the broadcasting thing. It was kind of funny because I just got to the point to where I got the jazz station that kind of went on hiatus. They brought it back in the HD2 form, and then I just got to the point to where I kind of had got it back. I was the only person still in the building that really knew the music, and we had got to a point where we brought it back. They switched me to morning, so I was actually now doing my show, from the morning until 1 p.m. And then I had, and they knew by what I did that I knew my music, and then I was able to actually develop a
listenership,
neo soul jazz hip hop show that I was doing every Saturday on the station, and they were 100. So I was doing like, Robert Glasper, Sun Ra, Alice Coltrane. I was going down. I was going down that road, and then I got furloughed, so I put an end to that. And also during that time, I was working as a application specialist for a company called Tessitura that is primarily a software, and it's a database software for performing arts venues, museums, theme parks like that. Got let go of that job. And at the end of 2019, I came back here to the Rep. I had started here at the Rep in 2007 and became the box office manager, the IT manager, and the systems administrator. And then I went to go work for the software company. When that didn't work out, man, I needed a gig. And, I had the relationship here, but just off the strength that I knew the software system, I was able to come back here and work in a completely different capacity. And now I work in philanthropy and fundraising that I knew nothing about. So I've spent since 2019 now learning that skill set and that side of the business. And now I work in the artistic department as well. So I'm an artistic associate. So now I work in the artistic department, kind of guiding what we put on stage, and also part of the Vision Council, which is overseeing this current state of equity and equity and representation. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So I'm primarily a performing arts person.
Ooh, I see.
Administrator at that.
But I see it with a whole lot of influence in that bucket. So for folks that don't know what the Rep is, what is the Rep?
So San Diego Repertory Theater is, I think we're either the third, or I think when it comes to play houses, I don't want to count the Symphony because Symphony does music, but as far as putting on plays, we're about the third largest theater in the city, along with the Old Globe and La Jolla Playhouse. We primarily put on live productions, live theater. We we're located at Horton Plaza, so we actually have two facilities in one. We have a larger theater and a smaller theater. So while we're putting on shows that we produce that are in our season, we're also a rental theater. So there's a lot of smaller theater companies in town that will rent one of our theaters for however long they have a run for. So primarily I'm in the performing arts in the theater world, and I work mostly on the administrative side of it.
See, so now talk to me about the equity piece, because I think there's a theater over in North Park, off Park somewhere. Maybe it's a little avant-garde. I feel like I have, in my mind, I'm like, Black.
It might be the Versionary.
The Versionary Theater. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
But are there any, so two questions. Are there any Black owned, operated, centered
Yeah.
theater groups in San Diego.
Yeah, man. There's Community Actors
That's
Theater.
what it is. That's what it
There's
is.
Common Ground Theater, which is
Yeah.
basically might be the oldest theater in San Diego. It's
Okay.
Common Ground Theater. Like these
Yeah.
are theaters that people don't know about. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Yeah.
And you know, there's they don't have their own facility, but
Mhm.
there's you know Urban Warriors, which was the CEO is DeHaan Blevins and the founder, and he is the founder of Kumba Festival, which we just had our 29th Kumba Festival here at the Rep. Just well, it's been here at the Rep for 29 years. We just did that last weekend. This always falls around towards the last weekend of Black History Month, so we just did the 20th. Like everything else, we had to do it virtually, but we did the 29th annual Kumba Festival. So yeah, man, there's a lot of there's a lot of black theater and black culture here in San Diego, man.
So talk to me a little bit about that then, because I've been down to the World Beat Center. I've heard of Kumba Fest. I don't think I've ever been, and I'm a little bit tied to some of kind of Black church world in San Diego, but in terms of the Pan African, more diasporatic,
Yeah.
even kind of theater bit, tell me about that. So uh what does that look and feel like?
So you know the theater world, and this is part of the mission I've always been on, man. This is part of the mission that you know a lot of us are on. When you hear these days,
Mm.
you know, mainstream, when you hear black art, you're mostly thinking of music or film. You
Yeah.
know, music, film, screen. That's what usually comes to mind.
Hmm.
What we don't know as a community is the heritage that we have in black live art, i.e., performing arts, live theater. You know, live theater. We don't understand the history and influence we have on visual arts. You know, painting, sculpture, these type of things.
Hmm.
And there's just a huge, rich history
Hmm.
here in San Diego when it comes to
Mm.
you know black theater artists, creatives.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
so you know when you're looking at like I take an example for us, uh, we deal in theatrical works of all kind. You know, we deal in live theater, so we deal in classics. So we are somewhat of a progressive theater. So we deal with a lot more contemporary progressive works. We deal with a lot of works in the Latinx community. You
Yeah.
know, we have three main festivals that we do. We have the Kumba Festival every year. We have the Jewish Arts Festival,
Yeah.
and we have the Latinx Festival.
Okay.
And you know, these are three very large festivals here in San Diego
Yeah.
where we put on art and we put on art and workshops and plays that you know
Hmm.
fall into all these cultures. You know what I mean? And
Hmm.
we
Hmm.
even in our main stage shows, we're always trying to put on theater that you know represents like our part of our mission statement is that represents the voices of our region.
Yes.
So we're constantly trying to do diverse works. Now, honestly, um, you know, we haven't had, I don't know when the last time we've had a black centered play
Yeah.
in our
Yeah.
main season. It's been
Yeah.
it's been a few years, you know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
But there is just a rich, rich, rich black theater community here in
Yes.
San Diego that people just
Yeah.
are not aware of, man. I'm talking actors, directors, designers, you
Yes.
know, administrators that people
Yes.
just don't know. And I
Yes.
there's greats in our history. Like we've,
Yeah.
you know, we're in this place where we're always the other, but we're
Yeah.
we're, we're part of the foundation. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? We're part
Yeah.
of the foundation, and you know, my goal is to try to get more, you know, black folks to understand
Mhm.
what is live theater. You know,
Mhm.
what is live theater? What is
Mhm.
our contribution to live theater? And how many of our greats in the past have come up through live theater. We see a lot of people on film. We don't know, man. Like,
Yeah.
you know, Charles S. Dutton, he starts in theater. Like most
Yeah.
actors we know, they start in
Yeah.
theater.
Yeah. Yeah.
You look at Andra Day, who just won the Golden Globe
Yeah.
for Billie Holiday. She comes from SESD CPA.
You
You
know,
know,
this is funny. My daughter just got into that joint, and
is that right?
we've just been having this conversation because she's like, dyed in the wool, can't help but be creative. Like just walk
Yeah.
around singing and dancing, has no other way of orienting to the world.
Right.
So we were for early like, man, we're gonna have to figure out how to do right by this child, you know. And so anyway, we were pleased that she's down there. We got to figure out all the logistics. But on her day, we've been talking about her recently. The other thing that you reminded me of, I went to UCSD for a little while, and I was in the science building, which happened to be right next door to the theater
Mhm.
department. And I
Right.
would tap over there, like dip over there, to get a break from all of the science, and was surprised to learn that UCSD had such a strong acting program, and
Yeah,
was
my
out there with,
man.
like, I was like, what, this is nutty. But I guess it makes sense when I was kind of, okay, the Old Globe, the Hoyle Playhouse, that's not coming out of nothing. I guess there's got to be a core group of educators and things happening here. And then they would, I remember they would have their final show either in New York or here, and then pick markets and all that stuff. But I was just shocked.
My man Stephen Bisher is a professor over there at
Okay.
UCSD, and then like I
Hmm.
said, La Jolla Playhouse is right next door.
Yeah.
Monique Gaffney, who's been on a couple of episodes of We Are Listening, and she's an
Yeah.
educator and an actress here in town. Her father, Dr. Floyd Gaffney, taught
Yeah.
at UCSD, just a legend
Yes.
in not black theater, a legend in theater, period.
Period.
But we
Yeah.
don't know
Yeah.
this.
Yes.
We don't know this. We don't know these people. We don't know, like, she was on an episode and she's talking about when her when she was a kid, and she's talking to her dad, and James Baldwin is coming over to the house
Yes. I mean, these are my wall. This is like one of the quotes on the wall over here. Wow. Wow. In San Diego?
in San Diego, man. Yeah, I
Wow.
got you can't see it, but I got Baldwin and Nina Simone up here.
Yeah.
I got them on the wall.
Yes. Man. So what personally drew you into this world, into this space, and made you feel like you could set up shop here? What drew you to theater?
Well, it's weird. It's kind of a weird path to where I thought that I kind of just stumbled into it, but I didn't realize that I was kind of groomed into it in a way.
Yeah.
I don't know if my dad and mom knew they were doing that, but
Yeah.
they did in a way.
Yeah.
Um, my dad worked for 40 plus years right down here downtown at the Spreckles Theater. He
Mhm.
was head of security for 40 plus years, man. So when
Wow.
I was in high school, sometimes if he worked down here, so I would sometimes just be down here.
Yeah.
But also, I was in high school and he was like, "Hey, if you want to earn an extra couple bucks, I can put you on the security team this weekend." I would,
Yeah.
go down and just hang out and
Yeah.
work the lobby, and that I didn't realize it, but that was kind of like my introduction, kind of like to how at
Mm,
live performances, especially in
mm.
theater, how people
Yes.
work. And at the
Yeah.
Spreckles, everything came through there. So it
Yeah.
wasn't just plays. Like the
Yeah.
Spreckles, everything came through. Concerts,
Yeah.
plays, dance competitions.
Yeah.
And so, as a kid and as a
Yeah.
teenager, I had that experience,
Very
always seeing how that worked. And
Yeah.
then, man, like, out of high school, I went to Mira Mesa High School,
Mm.
and right out of high school, I had my first daughter, and I was trying to do it all, man. I had my daughter. I
Mm.
was still trying to go to junior college.
Mhm.
I became a Marine Corps reservist,
Ooh, look at you.
and I was still running the streets with my boys.
Yeah.
So you already know right there,
Yeah.
that's disaster coming.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's doing too much.
Too much.
That's doing
Yeah.
too much. And
Yeah.
it's funny now how things are now, but
Yeah.
I literally end up catching a charge,
Mm.
for robbing a weed dealer.
Oh, wow.
And and I say this, people are like, "You talk so openly about this," and I do, because I want young black men and black women, anybody really who falls
Yeah.
in any situation, to understand that they can come back from anything.
Yeah.
No matter how far you fall, if you
Yeah.
don't die,
Yeah.
if you put
Yeah.
in the work and
Yeah.
sacrifice, you can come
Yeah.
back.
Yes.
And so I ended up doing 6 years in CDC, man, from 1996 to
Ooh.
I came home in 2000. Yeah, 2002. Came
Wow.
home in March of 2002.
Wow.
And I came home right into a post 9/11 world,
Yeah.
and I end up working right there at the Spreckles, man. My dad
Uh-huh.
got me a job on
Yeah.
the they needed
Yeah.
another maintenance guy,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I ended up working there. I had picked up a lot of skills when I was,
Yeah.
not only in the military, but
Yeah.
when I was locked up, man, I picked up a lot of maintenance and
Yeah.
irrigation skills and
Yeah.
things
Yeah.
such as that, and so I was able to
Yes.
fit in and do the work there. And at the
Yes.
time, it's a 6-story office building and 1,500 seat theater. And
Wow.
so at the time, there
Yeah.
was 2 maintenance guys, me and Carlos, and
Wow.
1 janitor. I can't remember his name right now. I feel so bad for me. I
Wow.
remember his name, but And so we took care of this playhouse and office building. It was the three of us. We were the maintenance
Yes.
and janitor.
Yes.
And so working there, like I said, working there, I just saw so many different,
Mm. Mm.
acts, and everybody just, I mean, at that time it was, like I said, there was jazz coming through, there was plays coming through,
Mm.
just all types of stuff, man. And
Mm.
that's actually how I got into radio, because Smooth Jazz KFM would actually sponsor a lot of concerts that would come through, because it'd always be like Boney James, Mindy Abear,
Yeah.
Peter White.
Yeah.
They were coming through on the regular.
Yeah.
And Freckles was the main place where they would come play. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And
Yes.
I remember I've always wanted to be in radio. Like I said, I'm a San Diego kid. I
Yeah.
always wanted to be on 98.1. I remember listening. My sister was one to put me in. When it came to music, my dad was the straight ahead jazz.
Yeah.
My brother was the funk.
Yeah.
My brother was the Parliament, the Ohio players, and my sister was like the smooth jazz and the R&B.
Yeah.
I had the hip hop was mine, so I had this whole round inspiration of music. And so I always wanted to be on 98.1, and they came through. I think it was a Mindy Abear concert, man. I went up to the promotion person. I said, "Hey, check it out. Like, I've always wanted to be in radio. I don't have time to go to school for this. I don't have time for any of it." I'm like, "But is there a way to get in the door? Like, I'll come in an empty trash can tonight. Just let me know I can get in the door, and I'll get to the studio. I'll get behind the microphone."
Yeah.
And she was like, "If you're serious, give me a call on Monday." I gave her a call on Monday, 9 o'clock on the spot. She got me an interview on the promotion team. I was like the oldest dude on the promotion team, hanging up the posters and the stickers. But I went from that, got into the studio, learned how to engineer, learned how to produce shows, engineer in the studio and everything. Went from there to where I was able, to get on air, and that's how I got into the radio biz. So the radio and the theater have kind of been parallel this whole time.
So what gave you? This is interesting that we're having a conversation about doing time and coming out and preserving your mind and still living your life. I'm gonna get emotional about it. My pops used to. He was a correctional officer at the maximum security penitentiary in Lompoc. I grew up in Lompoc, on the reservation, so on the housing for people that were staff at the prison,
right
across the street, and. You'd sometimes hear the siren and people jump the fence or whatever. There was a maximum security pen, and then there was the FCI, Club Fed was over there off to the side. Michael Milk and white collar crime was over there. And I remember one time he brought home this box full of shanks, just full to the tippy top, of some of the most ghastly kind of weapons to hurt people. You're just like, damn, this is something else, I think as some sort of incentive or some sort of message to me or whatnot. But when I, particularly in the context of this conversation, when I'm here thinking about the voice of Black men in the country, but, just here, and how to empower one another, to encourage one another, and even when I think of where most brothers are at, this 2 days ago in my mind, I'm like, man, I need to be having prison conversations, as sad and as that is. So what is your, so the question is, how did you come up out of 6 years with your right conscious mind?
It's like anything else, man. You gotta want to do it.
Yeah.
You have to be able to look at where you're at.
Yeah.
And you have to have that moment, whatever you want to call it, whether you want to have, whether it's
come to Jesus moment or some moment of
come to Jesus moment, whether it's a moment of clarity, it's a Saul of Tarsus moment where the scales falls from your eyes, whether it's a Buddha under the tree, whatever part of that Joseph Campbell journey you're on. You gotta have that moment to where you make up your mind to where this is not my life. This is not where I was supposed to be.
Yes.
But even if this was where I was supposed to be, this is not where I want to stay.
Yes.
And so what I had to do, man, is it's like anything else out here, because prison is just a society within a society. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I just had to make up my mind, man, to where I'm going to do everything I can to keep my mind current. I'm going to do everything I can. It's kind of like, you see the movies, like you see Malcolm X and You see where he's like reading by the light, you know what I mean? And it's like that, man. If you want to know, you gotta find the material. You gotta find the time to read. You gotta separate yourself from what's going on.
So now what's driving, but why did Ahmed decide that that's how you were going to approach it? Who do you attribute that to? So that's like grit and this, that, making your mind up is no small thing. That's not like, that doesn't come pre-programmed for everybody. Some people have a little extra, but oftentimes we need to have been surrounded by people or be encouraged by people or have had some sort of an experience that convinces us, oh, well, hell, I need to do this different. Would you attribute that to anything, or do you really feel like, no, man, this is just kind of based with the situation? I had to go left or right.
It was a combination of things. Like when I, growing up, my dad had this giant bookcase, man, and it was just volume. Like one was like the book of books of knowledge, the other one was like an encyclopedia thing, and another one was some other kind of big reference volume, man. As a kid, I would literally sit in the hallway. People tell me to move all the time. I literally sit in the hallway, man. I would just pick a book and I would just go through these almanacs and these things, and I would just learn about the world, And so, and then on top of that, at the high school I went to, Mary Mesa High School, I'm really blessed, man. Like that at the time, like that particular school for San Diego City Schools really had great teachers, man. Like really, really good teachers that cared. Like, and Mary Mesa was mostly Filipino, but
we lived there for 10 years or something. I lived in Mary Mesa.
Yeah, so the makeup of Mary Mesa.
I know. Yeah.
And so but it was diverse, and even for the few of us blacks that were there, we really got along. But we got along with everybody. You know what I mean? And
I often joke about it. I'm like, Filipino folks are like black Asian folks. So, not to, that's probably stereotyping too much or saying too much. My bad to my Pinoy, peoples. But like, I have love for some Filipino folks, man. I really do. So
and I think it was just a combination of and Mary Mesa is really heavy on sports, so it's a really competitive neighborhood too. Really, everybody. Mary Mesa was a neighborhood where everybody was really competitive and really cool, but it was a really competitive neighborhood with sports, man. Almost everybody in Mary Mesa was an athlete in one way or another, And I think it was just a combination of that, a combination of the learning process that I went through at Mary Mesa, a combination of the great teachers I had, great friends. Mary Mesa wasn't by any means, it was kind of like a no man's land in the city because people didn't know we were, once you got past the 8.
Yeah, what's up there?
People would be like, we weren't North County.
Yeah, you're not Oceanside.
We were on the other side of the 8, so we weren't Penasquitos or Poway.
Yeah.
We were right on the other side of Miramar. At the time, was a naval base. Now it's a marine base. We were right on the other side of that.
Yes.
So we were just a place where people would drive by and they didn't know what is that place. They're not North County, they're not South County, but they're not. And we were just a wild ass suburb. Man. It was the base. It was a bunch of military brats.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Scripps Ranch was up the hill.
Yes.
So there was no Scripps Ranch High School then. So all the people who lived in Scripps Ranch go to Mary Mesa. So we had this mix of like like Dave Chappelle said, his parents lived to a neighborhood to where they moved to a neighborhood to where Dave just was able to realize how broke he was. It wasn't a bad neighborhood, but it was good enough for them to understand, okay, we barely live in here. And that's kind of how Mary Mesa was. It's a big house. It's a big house party scene. It was and so it was just kind of for us. We're probably online one of the biggest neighborhoods in San Diego. Everybody calls it the Mecca. We all have this kinship of being we kind of occupied this really spot in neighborhoods of San Diego. And I think just going through that, having the grit of my parents, folks, my mom and dad picked cotton together as children. That's where we from in Alabama. My family's from the swamps of Alabama, man. I grew up spending my summers in Alabama, still having that Jim Crow
Yeah.
feeling.
Yeah.
I still walked in that. That was still
Yeah.
there. I grew up with wild dogs and understanding how to raise hogs and when the pipe freeze, this, that, and how everyone needs to be in at night because once the sun goes down, Black folks don't want to be out. Like my summers and winters were spent in that reality. That's the reality my mom and dad came out of. So there was part of that grit too, man. And I made up my mind a long time ago, man. I don't like life to beat me, man. Competitive like that. I don't like life. I'm not gonna let life beat me as a man. I don't care what else. I'm not gonna let life beat me as a man. And I think that's one of the things that killed me. I just was in that box and realizing like, man, I'm about to miss 6 years of my baby's life as far as seeing her every day. I'm in this box. I'm watching the world move and go on, and I'm looking at this. And you know, in '96, man, that was when the Republican National Convention was here. And Bob Dole was running Bob Dole was running against Bill Clinton, who was running for re-election. And they swept the streets, man. There was so many Black and brown people in the county jails in 1996 because the Republican National Convention was here, like just like they do they swept the streets, man. And that was during the time when the 3 strikes law was hot. People don't know, but I think people have forgotten about what was going on with 3 strikes. 3 strikes was hot, man. I was in there with cats just getting life. Stole a pizza, life. Stole a can of soda, life. That's your 3rd strike. I don't think people understand that. That was the time that I went into this system. And I was in there, man. It didn't take long, man. It didn't take long. I was in the county and recognizing that because even before I went that route, I still was always on some knowledge. You know, I was always raised on knowledge. We was always raised on understanding, reading Malcolm X and reading, James Black. We knew the history and we knew the forces that were against us. You know what I mean? But it was just once I got in there, it was just like a switch. Like, nah, man, this is not your manifestation, dude. This is not where this. This is not the lane for you. This is not where you are supposed to be. And I think that fueled me to just. I scrambled for everything, man. I scrambled for every newspaper I could find, every current periodical, everything I could to keep my mind current. I studied I tried to study what the recidivism rate was in prison and analyze what were the forces that were keeping us coming back. I literally was studying my environment. What is dudes who come back on the yard, man? I see the same dude come back on the yard 3 years, especially with Donovan, because Donovan's a reception center. So a lot of times the guys who would come in there, they would just keep them there. At Donovan and just, and so, you got guys who were like, would come back 2 or 3 times. And every time I see them come back, I catch them every time. Hey, check this out, man. How come you didn't stay out? Because for me, it was like, when you're on the yard like that and you're on the yard with dudes who are doing life, you got guys who were getting sentenced in the late 70s and 80s. You got guys who were coming in 14 and 15. And that's back when they were just doing the 7 to life, 15 to life. And parole don't mean nothing, man. They're just gonna make up their mind whether there's just to life. There's no guarantee you are gonna get out. And so I'm talking and dealing with dudes who've been locked up already for 10, 15, 20 years. And for me, when I see a guy come back on the yard 3 times, for me, I'm like, damn, dude, that's a waste of a release date. There are dudes who've been sitting here for 20 years, and he got to sit here and watch you go and come back 3 times. And so I would ask him, like, what is going on? And so, and people laugh, but I would literally do this, man. Everything dudes told me they were doing when they got out,
I'm not doing that.
Sure, I'm not doing that.
I'm not doing that.
Oh, when I got out, man, I know this is club you should go to. Okay, don't go to that club. I went and hung out with that. Okay, don't go hang out there. You know what I mean? Like, I would just make it better. Don't do this. Don't do that. Don't do this. Don't do. Okay, I know what not to do. I see, and I just was keeping this. I was just keeping this, I guess, like giant Excel sheet in my head, man, of what. And I would think about, okay, so this is what they're going out to do. Let me pay attention to what they're doing while they're in here as well.
Tell me while I'm listening to you and I'm looking at your bio and what we just read at the top, thinking about these moments of clarity. It's real clear to me that getting locked up was your moment of clarity. That was the, oh, no, this isn't how, like you said, this isn't my manifestation. The story's not going to end right here. So when I look at the yin and the yang, we talked a little bit about Joseph Campbell, had a little come to Jesus moment, whether you're Siddhartha in the tree. All of these places I too pull from, bro, like in terms of my understanding of who I am, order and chaos, the yin and yang, duality and the nature of our existence and what's really going on here, what we're trying to do, masculinity, femininity, all that I'm fascinated by. And it seems like I'm getting hints of it in your language. So I'm curious, how do you wield some of that knowledge in your life today, or what parts of it fuel you, inspire you, or just, create more wonder? Do you, I guess maybe for me to make it clearer, I often do this. I'll ask like 5 questions in one question.
I do the same thing.
What I'm trying to say is, do you have a faith practice that fuels you, or a philosophy that fuels you?
I when I was younger, man, like my mom and dad didn't really go to church that much.
Yeah.
It was kind of they started going to church, and my extended family, they went to church, and they really got more serious in the church when I got locked. It's just timing. It wasn't that. It's just life went on, and that was the path they went to, and they got really involved in Mount Erie Church. You know what I mean? For me, I have always, since I was a kid, I've always stared at the sky, man. Like I've always stared at the stars and wondered, like, what's up with this? You know what I mean? Like I've always, like, I think I remember being a kid and going on a field trip up here to the Reuben H. Fleet Space Center. And I remember, watching on that big dome, the IMAX thing, we watched this thing about the constellation. And I'll never forget the one that stuck with me to this day. Anytime, every night I walk out, I look at the sky for Orion. That's the one that stuck with me.
That's me and you too. Those 3 stars. Those are the 3 wise ones in the east, pointing to Sirius.
The arrow the behind the back. That's the one that stuck with me. And I've always looked at the sky, but my mind has always wondered, like, what is this? And even I went through my time when I was in prison. I got really heavy into the scripture. My sister was like, of course, like my sister, I went through my periods of being a bad kid, man, and the kids do. Some get caught up, some don't. You know what I mean? I was one that got caught up. Yeah. And my sister was just, my sister was just feeding me scriptures, feeding me daily bread, sending me daily bread, just feeding me scriptures. And so I got heavy, into the Bible, but I got heavy into the Bible out of the way that I used to study when I was at home. So when I got heavy into the Bible, I need to know, I'm reading the King James and I'm like, okay,
what's this mean?
That word means but that's not today's English.
Yes.
And this dude came from what part of the world?
Yeah, man.
And that opened my mind to, okay, I need to get a concordance. I need to get history. I need to understand what part. And so what that led me to do was just start dissecting, the scripture, the word, the history of the church, the history of the scriptures, what translations came from where, what political motivations made this, that. And so what that led me to was like, so I so I'm studying the Bible, and now I get to the point where I'm like, pardon my French, like, okay, a lot of this is a lot of bullshit.
I speak French,
as far as how they presented it to us.
This
don't even match up with history. This don't even match up with, you know what I mean?
Yes.
And so once I'm studying that, now I'm going to the library, and I'm getting books that no one else is getting. So I'm going to the library, man. And at the time, R.J. Donovan had a really good library when it comes to prisons. That's where I spent my first 3 years at Donovan. So I'm going through and I'm getting history book. I got my mom and dad sending me, but I need this book. I need this book. This book right here. And so once I'm studying that, okay, now I got to study the Quran. So now I'm studying the Quran. So now I'm studying the Quran. I'm studying the Hadith. I'm studying all that. So now I'm studying that and I'm pulling that apart. Oh, I need to study Confucius. I need to know what's up with Buddha. I need to know what's up with that. I need to know what is the changes in philosophies. Why do we call it the Renaissance? Because there was something before the Renaissance. And what was that? And where did we get the word? So I literally went down the right type of rabbit hole when I was in. And I just went down and the more I went down the rabbit hole, I started coming across more philosophy. It turned into it went from wanting to make sure I didn't come back to prison to making sure that I got out and tried to find a way to excel. And then it went from the years I've been out from trying to find a way and excel, because in doing that, in order to make it through all those years, I had to do some compartmentalization in my mind. I had to do things to separate myself from thinking of outside, thinking of the women that were outside. I had to do some ways to kind of put myself in a place to where I didn't get caught up in the
Yeah.
things that drive people in there to
Yeah.
really get
Yeah.
stay in these destructive
Yeah.
mindsets.
Yeah.
And so in doing that,
Yeah.
you know, that's one thing that's followed me up until really
Yeah.
it's been a battle for me is to come. I developed this way of putting things in compartments, and I
Mhm.
never really got out of that. And that's one thing that has been a problem for me that I did. I was never, you know, relationships and things that I do. Sometimes I put things in boxes, and I would,
Yeah.
when I'm here, I'm here. When I'm here, I'm here. And then I'm
Yeah.
doing this, and I didn't, you know, I didn't learn how to put them and bring everything back into one piece.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But so that's developed now. All of that is developed now. So, like I said, man, I'm just trying to figure out, okay, how do I manifest this thing into the highest level of being I'm supposed to be? If I can concentrate on that, then I'll go wherever else I'm supposed to go, and whatever else is supposed to come will come. So that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Amen. And Ashe, and right on. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. So towards that end, then, what whether it's your day to day, you know, because I'm with you. I kind of had a similar path. I was just talking to my man the other day, like, about, you know, like I was just on a phone call. And I was like, "Hey man, have you read this book?"
Right.
I was like, "Hey man, have you read this book?" "Hey bro, this one right here too." You know what I mean? I was going through all of my, like, I don't think the story we got was the story, you know. And so that was similar to me. I came up in the church and then had a whole exploration all around the origins of knowledge and philosophy, and thinking about, you know, what's happening, and then a mixture of my own kind of direct experiences has led me to kind of. I really do enjoy Joseph Campbell and some of this, like, hero's journey thing. You know, around and go out and discover and come back, and that pattern of, you know, ground, go, and then come back and tell what you discovered. To me, it's the same as fall, winter, spring, summer. It's the same cycle.
It's all the same.
It's the same from dusk, dark, dawn to day. That whole, you know, so this 4-part rhythm, and it's some part of what's in this 540 idea is embedded in my whole manifestation. So I think in that rhythm, we might find keys to a kind of order out of the chaos that you're describing in ways that we can kind of systematize and accelerate consciousness, to be real honest with you. So not to mention some of this yin yang stuff. So, you know, some of what you just described in terms of compartmentalizing things, I struggle with some of the same stuff. Sometimes I do credit it to, like, you know, knucklehead dude stuff, but I think that's a cop out, right? Like, boys will be boys or something like that. I think within each one of us probably exists, you know, good portions of masculinity and femininity, and we're here and call it yin yang, call it whatever you want to call it.
Whatever you want to call it, yeah.
Yeah, you know, we're here trying to figure out how to integrate, like you said. So how has it been? So you have a daughter.
I have a 29-year-old.
Ooh, look at you.
Yes, I have a 29-year-old Alicia. She was my firstborn. And she just had a baby, so I'm actually a grandfather.
Look at you. Congratulations. Congratulations.
And then I got 3 little ones, man. And then I got 3 little ones. I got 6-year-old twins, and I got, who's going on now, I think, a 14, 15-month-old.
Ooh, look at you.
I got all the parenting advice anybody needs, man.
Ooh, look at you. Bless you. Oh my goodness. I have a 14 and an 8. So the days of, you know, I just had a buddy that had a baby too, and I'm like, man, you know, it was tough going from the 6-year-old that was so far out of diapers to go back to the diapers again, like, oh my goodness, I'm doing this. So how does that inform your life? I mean, father is the first word you put on your bio. So what does that look like in your life, and how does it impact you?
Because that's the for me now, that's the compass I have to keep in front of myself. That's the compass now, because I need to understand that, you know, I'm a dad, I'm a grandfather, and you know, I need to understand that through, you know, all the madness that I've carried on, that, you know, you're dad now. You're responsible.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
responsible for lives. And then
Yeah.
when they get, and I look at my mom and dad, it's like that verse in the Bible. It's always for the parents to lay up for the children, not for the children to lay up for the parents. It's like you never stop being a parent. My mom, my mom to this day is still. Did you eat? Are you getting enough sleep? What are you doing? What do you need help with? What's going on with you? You don't seem to be yourself today. What's going on? You sound sad today. You sound tired. You never stop being a parent. You know what I'm saying? And I think, that's, like I said, that's the compass, is to try to find a way for them, even despite all the madness, that even I may have produced, is still trying to find a way, to show them to move forward. And I think also that's what keeps my mind curious, because we're in a state now to where everything is moving so exponentially fast. And I had this conversation in a meeting yesterday. Not only as things are, as technology moves exponentially forward, what that means is that our past moves exponentially towards the past as well. We're speeding up this way, which means the past is speeding back as well and moving farther from it. So, my thing now is like, how do I keep my mind current to understand what these kids are going to be looking at 2 years from now? I understand that, like, 2 or 3 years from now is different from when my parents had to look 2 or 3 years from now. Technology wasn't going to change as much as it did for them as it is for these kids. I don't know what Amir and Amara, I don't know what technology is going to be for them for them, everything they do, it literally, people are not paying attention. Seriously, they might be looking at a hologram in their hand when they're talking to their friends. Their watch or their tablet might bring their friends up as a hologram. We know that. We saw the Tupac hologram. In Japan. Most of the stars and most of the concerts going on are done in holograms. And so we're looking at what technology is going. That might be the way that my kids are communicating in a few years. That their friends are going to be a hologram that pops up on their hand or on the desk. So it's keeping your mind fresh that way, but it's also the mission for me has always been, I think, because of where my parents come from, and being media savvy since I was a kid, it's always been about images and representation. And it's always been about where Black people see themselves, what light they see themselves. And when I was in radio, I was really concerned to always be myself. I was always going to be me. If the gig was not going to allow me to be me, I didn't need the gig. The show wanted, and I know people in the business who've changed their presentation because, they needed, people needed them to sound white. And I just refused. And I was like, it's going to be what it's going to be. This is who I am. I'm not going to cheat. I'm not cheating my parents, my ancestors, my future, nobody for that. And so in every space I've occupied, that's been the mission. That's the mission here in the performing arts as well, man. Especially we're in this moment. The mission here now is, you want to put on a play about Black folks, put it on right. Let's represent the right way. How come there's no Black people in the administrative office? How come there's no Black people on the board? How can you think you're going to put on an accurate representation of Black people on stage if from the board and leadership down there's no Black people in situations and in areas that are going to inform the decisions you make? How could that doesn't work? And so here I am in this space, and and it's an art space to where I'm able to continue with that mission. You know what I mean?
And thank you for doing that. My sister may run the largest diversity and inclusion initiative on the planet. She works for Amazon. She happens to live here in town, actually, but she works all up in Amazon operations and is the lead, the global lead. And I have done some of that work myself, and it's challenging but worthy. You know what I mean? It's like the good fight. So just regardless of our conversation, if ever any of that is helpful, holler. I also am friendly with the dude that runs philanthropy for the local PBS station here in town. So since you're wearing that hat today, Alex Kim is a good dude. So, in terms of comparing,
I'm about to link up with him.
Yeah. He's a real good dude. He's a good dude. So, I don't know how the world of philanthropy works. If people are, don't want to tell you about the person they know, because, but I'm trying to ask him for something now that you can't go ask, but it's different. It's different. So I'm sure he knows a lot of people that would be helpful with what you're up to.
Oh, sure.
I sometimes ask people what was the unspoken message they received from their mom and their dad, right? So from my dad, it was probably stay curious. And for my mom, it was probably stay safe and stay healthy.
Right.
And she used to say that, when I'd leave the house, she'd say, if you can't be good, be safe,
Right.
And so I'm curious, both as a father and a son, what message do you think, unspoken or spoken, did you predominantly hear from your folks? And what message are you trying to deliver to your children?
I think probably to their credit, I think, and I hope they, they'll probably watch this. And I think to their credit, I hope they understand this. The I think the main messages I got from my parents were those that were unspoken that they don't know.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? I think it was this unspoken. I think
Mhm.
I look back at my parents and what they've done. For them, it's kind of like that Marshawn Lynch quote, like I'm all about that action, boss.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like
yeah,
I think,
yeah,
as much as they told me
yeah,
and verbally gave me, what sticks to me more is what they did.
yeah,
What sticks to me more is where they came from, like where
yeah,
they came out of.
yeah,
And, you
yeah,
know, I, the
yeah,
work ethic, I think that's
yeah,
part of it too. During that
yeah,
time is the work ethic. Like I
yeah,
said, I started working when I was 15, man.
yeah,
My first job was at a Mandarin Garden Chinese restaurant at the Mary Mesa Mall. You know what I
mhm,
mean? And I was
mhm,
like,
mhm, mhm.
I was 15, man. I just wanted my own dough,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah,
I was
yeah,
working at this
yeah,
restaurant, man. My primary
yeah,
job, they cooked everything on woks, man. My primary job was to go down the line, snatch these woks off the fire, dip them
yeah.
in the water, and scrub them. I still have scars on my wrist from picking up these big woks, man. And they would just, if
Wow.
I didn't have the towel right, they would scar my
Yeah,
wrist,
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah,
I would work maybe like 3 or 4 nights a week after school, and on the weekends, I would work like 16-hour days, man. And that was when I was 15. You know what I mean?
wow.
And so I've always worked. The only time in high school I didn't
Yeah,
work is if it like contradicted with like a sports schedule or something.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
But I think that work ethic came from my mom and dad. My
yeah,
mom had 2 jobs, my dad had jobs. They worked all the time. They worked their
yeah,
butts off to make sure we were good. You
yeah,
know what I mean? And it came with trials and tribulations, but they worked. And
yeah,
uh, just by the curiosity of my dad, I think that's what got me in the media, what got me into talking, because my
yeah,
dad would always watch, like, I grew up on like Dick Cavett,
yeah,
the Diane Shore show,
yeah, yeah,
Donahue,
yeah, yeah,
Flip Wood. Like I grew up on a lot of these shows where
yeah,
people were talking about stuff.
yeah,
Like I grew
yeah,
up on a lot of these
yeah,
conversation shows.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah,
And
yeah,
so there was always that curiosity. My dad read a lot, so there was
yeah,
always a lot of magazines in the house.
yeah,
He
yeah,
always read a newspaper. To this
yeah,
day, I still love reading the newspaper.
yeah,
Like he's
yeah,
always reading the paper. But at
yeah,
the same time, my
mm,
mom worked really hard, and I
mm,
mean, my mom she worked, in food service. She worked at the galley at the base. She worked at UCSD for 20 plus years,
mhm,
working in, being a food
mhm,
supervisor in the cafeterias.
mhm,
And the other side that came from my mom was that my mom loved food. My mom loved fashion. You
mm,
know what I mean? And she loved,
mm,
events. So
mhm,
even stuff that we probably necessarily couldn't afford on the regular, my mom
mm,
would always make sure we went and ate and went to nice places. Like she
yeah,
always made sure we went and had brunch at some place that we know
mhm,
we can't do it regularly, but she made
mhm,
sure that
mhm,
we went. And whenever she went anywhere, man, she made sure that she demanded the respect that she wanted because she was paying her money. So
mhm,
she made sure that she wanted to sit where she wanted to
yeah,
sit. She made sure the food came the way she wanted to come. She
yeah,
made sure that the waitress or
yeah,
the waiter was paying attention the way they were supposed to pay attention.
yeah,
You know what
yeah,
I mean? And that was kind of like from her working in food service, but then
yeah,
also
yeah,
always wanting us to always wanted us to ask for a little bit more.
yeah,
Treat yourself a little bit to a higher,
yeah,
wherever you're
yeah,
at, try to reach for a little
yeah,
bit of higher status. Then
mhm,
also remember that the way I'm asking these people to treat us, this is the way you're supposed to treat people whenever you're
yeah,
in service.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know what I mean?
yeah,
And I think so. I think more unspoken was just the way they lived.
mhm,
It was just I saw the work. I saw the work ethic. I saw it. I knew what it was. I knew that's what it was. That's how it was supposed to be.
yeah. And so, what would you say, or you hope your youngins hear from you?
I think the same thing.
Yeah.
I think the same thing. I think for them
Yeah.
to understand that, hey, you know, if you want something, you got to work for it. Like, you know, no matter what, if you fall, you fall, get up. Like, if you want something, work for it. If you want something, try to be the best at it. Learn the most you can about it. Be the best in the room at it if you can. It's okay. Be competitive like that. Want to be the best one in the room doing that. What there's nothing wrong with that. There's, you know, the workman is worthy of his pay. Like, be the best. Be the best one you can be. Go ahead and do that. But I think something that I want to instill in them, that I haven't always been so kind to myself over the years. And I think it had to do with me coming out of the situation I came out of, and kind of always having a kind of thing to where I let that to a point, no matter how people know me and no matter how big and brash I may sound, I think there was always a point to where I was I kind of limited myself because I would sometimes feel like I didn't deserve better.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so I think the one thing that I would like them to take, you know, I understand that now, but the one thing I would like for all of them, like, and my daughter my oldest has that, like she has it, is to, hey, know your worth, get paid what you're worth being paid, do what you want to do. They're gonna pay you, make sure they pay you right, and you're working the job. Squeeze every bit of information. You just feel like anything you can learn in that gig, anything extra, squeeze every extra bit of learning that you can. If you got an opportunity to pick up any other type of skill or any type of knowledge from somebody, pick it up, soak it up, take it, learn it, and apply it to the next thing. And then when you get to the next thing and you got that skill, you can prove it, up your price when you get there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, buddy. Indeed, I do know exactly what you mean.
Because we know the money's there.
Yes, we know the money's there.
Out there.
We know the money's there.
It's there. It's just whether they're going to give it to you or not.
Yes. Whew, man, don't even get me started.
Like I said, that's a lesson I've had to learn. Because I was always in a position, well, I was here. You know, I had to get out of like, well, you know, I'm lucky to come out of that. And I had to get like, nah, dude, you work to get out of that.
Yes.
You work to get out of that.
Yes.
You work to get where you are now. You work.
There's Tony Robbins has a Netflix special, I'm Not Your Guru. I don't know if you've seen it. And somewhere in there, he's like, I built this mofo. You know what I mean? Like, hey, I'm here because I put in the work to be here, y'all. You know,
sweat equity, man.
So I'm telling you, you know, that internal understanding. Thank you for that. My goodness, thank you for that. Switch it just for a minute. Yeah. Since you're a music man, and I can't live life without music. This whole house permeates with music all the time. So I'm gonna ask you the question, but I'll answer myself a little bit. So the album I have probably listened to the most, on purpose or not, is Miles Davis' Kind of Blue. That album, probably hands down favorite all time.
Yeah.
Right next to it is Outkast ATLiens. And recently, man, I keep playing back over Kendrick's To Pimp a Butterfly. And like, the scope of that, like the message of that whole thing, to me, I think I'm amazed by dude and his integrity and kind of where he shoots from.
Right.
So tell me the same in your book. So either the album or artist you've heard the most. So you know, this may not be because you chose it, but it's actually in your head the most. And then what's your jam? What's album or artist?
It's so much, man. Like, I'm so all over the place. I probably hip hop wise, the artist I've listened to the most, as far as a solo artist, would be hands down Tupac. Yeah. Tupac is primarily a solo artist.
90s, man. Yeah, I get it.
You know, Cali. And then after that, you know, it's Jay. It's Jay-Z.
Yeah.
I still go back. I listen to a lot of Rakim, a lot of Nas. Cube, I believe, one of the most underrated lyricists in hip hop. I think people get caught. I think people don't understand how prolific that man's writing is. So yeah, a lot of Cube. Love Kendrick. Love Nipsey.
Man.
So I listen to a lot, man. I listen to a lot of hip hop, man. But I also, jazz, man. I do a lot of Miles. I think a lot of Miles. I love Sketches in Spain. Coltrane, Blue Train, Love Supreme.
See, you know what though? With both Sketches and Coltrane, it gets a little like I can get with it's on because it's off, like the Thelonious thing that's kind of offbeat. I get it. Like I get what you're doing and I can find the pocket. Sometimes with both Sketches and Coltrane, because it's particularly Coltrane. I'm like, I really have to tune in like Love Supreme, like it's so arrhythmic sometimes. And I'm like, anyway, but go on. Your story.
And I think the thing with that is because I think I always listened to them, but I think it was more after I studied them more. I kind of, especially with Miles and Coltrane, I started to understand
okay, that's what they're trying to say.
These guys were doing things that nobody else was doing.
Yes.
They were doing things that nobody else was doing. They're still trying to figure out how they were doing, especially Coltrane with how he, I have this thing right here, man, that blows my mind. I don't know if you can see this thing right here.
Yeah, what is that?
This is one of John Coltrane's, I think this particular one is typically called Coltrane's illustration of the soul of music. And what Coltrane was doing was drawing the music. And it's an excellent study to check out. It'll blow your mind. He was drawing ways to go between chords that nobody had ever seen before. He was drawing a way to get the A to G to here and back to here in a way that nobody else was doing before. And he was playing things. He was playing chords in a way that nobody. So he was playing chords with breath you're not supposed to have. So he was playing chords on an inhale that you were not supposed to play. You understand what I'm saying? And what you'll get from this is, do you know in hip hop who was so influenced by Coltrane? Rakim, because Rakim played the horn. And Rakim studied Coltrane, and that's why Rakim's delivery was so different at a time when everybody else was kind of screaming on the mic. When Rakim came, it was just this flow that no one had ever heard before. It's because he took what Coltrane was doing with music as a horn player and applied it to how he was going to run. And that's why Rakim came on the scene, and his flow was so ridiculous. He was hitting words, he was hitting things on the beat that no one else did, but that's because he took out Coltrane was applying that to his music. And so these are the things I think I'll kind of sum it up. You asked a question earlier. These are the things that in life that I look at. There's become one saying that's kind of grounded me in life, and it's from Miyamoto Musashi. And it's like if you see the way in all things, then you'll know the way broadly. I might be butchering it a little bit, but it's basically if you see the way in all things, you'll
who's
know.
Who's the
Miyamoto Musashi. He was probably like really kind of disabled, probably maybe the most deadliest samurai that ever lived, because he didn't have a style. He took every style and just recreated his own. He was able to take from every style, and so no one knew how to fight him because he's kind of like where the drunken style. He took every style and studied it, and no one could beat him because he was not beholden to one style. He could fight. His thing was to be able to fight off of any situation. Already consider yourself dead when you go in the back. He was just fighting. He could just fight off of any situation and any type of person and anything. And that was his thing. If you see the way in everything, then you'll know it broadly. You know what I mean? And I think that's what I try to apply in life. So that's why, I'm sitting at work during the day, man. Like I'm listening. I usually have I'll just put on YouTube in the background of people talking. So during the day, man, like when I'm working in the background, dude, I'm listening to Les Brown, Alan Watts, George
yes,
Peterson,
yes,
Eric Thomas, like my
yes,
list, Joe
yes,
Rogan, David
yes,
Goggins, Jocko
yes,
Willink. I'm
yes,
listening to these
yes,
dudes, but
yes.
these are not your happy
No, no,
go.
no.
They're not the happy go
No,
lucky.
no, man. Well, I'm
These are the
surprised
dudes
you
who
ever
like,
have him on the background. That's not background music, man. I gotta be. Hold up. There's this dude. So I went to this thing called the Influencer Conference down thing. This dude Brendan Bouchard. I don't know if you follow.
yeah, I got that. I got
Right,
right. I got that.
So
Right
for real, we need to. This is right. This joint right here. That's juice. That's juice right there. That's like a black man needs to read this. So he has an audible in this book. This is white guy reading it. Brendan, I love him. His heart is in the right place. I love him. He's beautiful. He's 44 years old. Brother needs to read this book. I think it might unleash some things. So E.T., this is like his little Bible too. And he came to be a stage presence at this influencer conference in 2019 that Brendan did. And before he came out on stage, he was like, he didn't put it together at the time. He was like, oh, this is you now? Like the dude that had invited him to come do the thing, he was like, oh, I didn't even know. Like your book is my medicine, Yeah. So anyway, I don't even know how we got off on that right now. Goodness gracious. How we get on that?
I think I sidetracked you a little bit because I was talking about
Well, I want to go check out the Coltrane thing. I want to see Coltrane's map. But maybe, in parting, let's say, because this has been a fantastic conversation. We need to continue this. What do you want us to say when you're not here? What do you hope is the message? I know I asked already about with regard to your children, but what would you say you were ultimately trying to say?
I think probably ultimately what I'm trying to say is that, and I'm nowhere near there, but I'm looking for it. We gotta transcend.
Yeah.
We gotta transcend. We gotta transcend everything we've been. We gotta transcend the human condition. And I think that's at the end of the day, that's what I'm doing right now. And it's hard. It's hard work, man. It's hard stuff to confront. I'm really trying to figure out. Like we said earlier, man, I'm really trying to figure out how do I get rid of all the excuses, man? How do I I need to be the best human I can be. That's the goal. That's the goal. How do you optimize your understanding, man, and try to be like Alan Watts said, we always say we're born into this world. And he's like, no, we're born out of this world. Like a flower is born out of the ground. Like, dude, like what is the highest mode of your manifestation? Figure it out. That should be the mission.
So, bro, I'm so with you. I can't even tell you. I feel like we're on kind of, the same journey. Something that strikes me about being in San Diego is we have the most federally recognized tribes out of any part of this country.
Yeah.
And sometimes I have these visions of grandeur of having Black and Indigenous folks on Indigenous land having this conversation about what it looks like to be able to access Alan Watts style energetics and an understanding of what's really going on and what's capable as a human being to see the way in all the ways and up level, to really grab a hold of and be all about that action, boss. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm with you. I think that's it. So, my man, I really appreciate your light in the world. I'm looking at you on the screen. I'm looking at you right now. I appreciate your story. I've been personally inspired, and I hope and know folk that listen will be inspired as well. So, we'll be looking for you and cheer for you and holler, please, at any time for any reason. Should you come across something you're like, oh man, let me hit my dude and see what he knows because I'm out here.
I will, man, and thank you, man, because I think these are the conversations that have been missing, man. Mm-hmm. These are conversations, and I think this helps us with the problem that Black men have had in the past. I think this helps us be vulnerable.
Yes.
To be able to share stories so that these youngsters can come up and know okay, I don't like Jay-Z said, well, I said that so you didn't have to go through that. That we teach the next generation of youngsters hey, young men, Black men, Black women, period. Hey, it's okay to be strong and be vulnerable, because you're not going to get anywhere until you recognize your faults.
Yeah. So good. Let me hit stop. I'm not going to drop from you. Let me just hit stop on my little thing here, and we'll wrap up. Let me see.